This is what it is. They don't give you a lot. So we capitalize on some of the opportunities we had. It's a different game, right?
The Maple Leafs are looking for answers after being shut out by the Florida Panthers last night in Game 4 of their second-round playoff series. Good afternoon. The Leafs' two-game lead in the series has evaporated, with the Panthers tying things up at 2 games apiece.
Now the series returns to Toronto on Wednesday, with the Leafs hoping to benefit from home ice advantage. CTV Sean Leathong has been following reaction to the series. He joins us live with more. Sean.
Well, Michelle and Nathan, I'm sure it's not what Leaf fans would have wanted when they headed down to Florida to come back tied 2-2. But if you'd asked those same fans before the series started, if you'd be coming home for Game 5 that's tied at 2, they probably would have taken it. And here we are against the Stanley Cup champions. But last night, Florida really showed why they are the defending Stanley Cup champions, beating the Toronto Maple Leafs 2-0. Now, for much of the game, the Leafs were down 1-0 with Joseph Woll in net in place of Anthony Stolarz, playing fantastic. He actually stopped 35 of 37 shots, but the backbreaker came with just over 5 minutes to go when Sam Bennett, yes, that Sam Bennett, broke in on a 2-on-1, outweighting Joseph Woll and scoring the second goal of the game, which pretty much sealed it for the Florida Panthers the way they were playing. They held Toronto to very few shots. There were a couple of chances for the Leafs. Matthew Nyes getting a breakaway at one point, not being able to capitalize. William Nylander getting a breakaway at one point. Partial breakaway, wasn't able to capitalize. And Sergei Bobrovsky in net for Florida played fantastic. So speaking to some fans today, they seemed relatively calm, thinking, you know, we have been here before. We've been in a lot of tight series, but also Coach Craig Berube this morning, speaking to the media, says he likes a lot of how the Leafs played. Here's what he had to say.
I think that the group understands it's going to be a tough series. We knew that going in. It's going to be a long series, and you know, we lose 2 at home here, but you know, we lost 2 against Ottawa in a row and came out in Game 6 and got it done. So we got to reset. We'll be fine. Get some rest here. I think the 2 days is really good for our team. You know, it takes a lot of energy in the playoffs, and a lot of guys play heavy minutes, so I think this 2 days is a good day and reset, and we'll be ready for Game 5.
Berube was also asked about Austin Matthews, who has yet to score in this series, and he said that, you know, Matthews is doing a lot away from the puck that is very essential in the game, and he says the mindset that this player has to have, because Matthews is someone who's known for scoring, is that there is a big goal coming, so Leafs fans should hope on that. One other note, Max Domi has been fined $5,000 for a hit that happened with 8 seconds to go in the game. $5,000 for a hit that happened with 8 seconds to go in the game last night. So he'll be paying that, but he will be not receiving a suspension. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Nathan and Michelle, send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Sean. Still to come, Prime Minister Mark Carney set to announce his cabinet tomorrow. We'll have a preview of his possible selections a little later in the newscast.
A woman remains in hospital in critical but stable condition following what police say was a random stabbing in Mississauga. Police have released these images of the suspect in the incident. He is accused of stabbing the woman near Eglinton in Huron, Ontario last night around 6:30 p.m. She was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries, but fortunately her condition has since stabilized. Police say she did not know her attacker. They're asking anyone with information to come forward.
Police are searching for 2 suspects in connection with a hate-motivated incident in April. Police have released these images of the 2 suspects. They're accused of vandalizing a vehicle with anti-Muslim slurs on April 26th near Steeles and Martin Grove. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward. A police week is underway in Ontario. It aims to highlight the importance of police services in helping to create safer communities.
The initiative is a partnership between Ontario's Ministry of the Solicitor General and the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police. Our Janice Golding's been following the story. She joins us live with the details. Janice.
Hi, Michelle. Yes, it is Police Week, a week where services across the country try to connect with the communities they serve and raise awareness about the services that they provide. Now, here in Toronto, a large turnout at Fairview Mall alongside a whole slew of dignitaries. Officers from a variety of units were on hand to talk to members of the public, community members who were also invited to check out equipment they don't normally have access to, like command vehicles, forensic identification services vehicles, K-9 unit, and emergency task force vehicles. Police Week was first celebrated in 1970 to coincide with Peace Officers Memorial Day, which is observed in the U.S. on May 15th to pay tribute to officers killed or injured in the line of duty. The theme for Police Week this year is called Protecting Ontario.
This week, We thank our police for their heroic work, heroism, which is inseparable from their careers. Our police services proudly look like Ontario, and we celebrate this diversity every day. It never matters where our families came from or how we got here. It matters that we are one province, standing up for the values that we hold dear, each of us belonging and taking our place on the tapestry, the quilt of Ontario.
When the police are called, it is often because someone is going through the worst day of their life. We are so grateful for the officers who serve, who put themselves in harm's way. Their acts of service in these moments, both brave and compassionate, inspire us all to care more for each other every day.
Police Week started yesterday and runs through to Saturday. Again, the focus on working together to enhance public safety, to promote safer and healthier communities. Reporting live, Janice Golding. Now back to Michelle.
Thank you, Janice. Fire crews battled a 3-alarm blaze in Cabbagetown overnight.
We were called to a residential fire just after midnight. Crews arrived to find a fully involved house fire. They made a rapid interior attack to extinguish the fire. Unfortunately, during the incident, we had 2 firefighters injured that were transported to hospital. They are being looked after by Toronto paramedics.
Flames broke out at a home on Aberdeen Avenue late last night. Fire officials say the home suffered extreme damage, though they have not provided a dollar value at this stage. The cause of the fire is under investigation. A new report is recommending the province eventually ban for-profit healthcare staffing agencies.
The call comes as data shows Ontario hospitals spent more than $9 billion on staff from the agencies over the past decade. CTV's Allison Hurst has been following this story and joins us live now with more details. Allison.
The study finds that Ontario's hospitals are under intense pressure and that growth in public spending on private agencies has outpaced growth in public hospital staff. Now, according to the study, Ontario Public Hospitals paid for-profit agencies $9.2 billion for services over 10 years. During this period, the real per capita private agency costs in Ontario nearly doubled, while spending on public hospital staff increased by 6%. The report says the reliance on private agencies by public hospitals is a vicious cycle that squeezes hospital budgets and hollows out the public sector workforce.
Ontario has become one of the most under-capacity hospital systems in the industrialized world. Ontario ranked number 33 out of 38 OECD countries in staffed hospital beds per capita and fell behind many other high-income countries with universal, publicly financed health systems.
Given that we're hemorrhaging nurses and other key staff in our hospitals, how can we afford to spend $9.2 billion over a decade on outside agencies and not be able to afford improvements to compensation, but also to things like on-site childcare to keep people in those institutions?
The report outlined several recommendations, including banning private agencies for over the next 3 years, stabilizing hospital finances, and getting a workforce stability and addressing the staffing shortages. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Back to you in studio.
Thank you, Allison. The Registered Nurses Association of Ontario marked the start of National Nursing Week with a report on the critical needs facing the healthcare system.
Our hospitals are overwhelmed. 1 in 5 beds is occupied by someone awaiting another level of care. Patients are being treated in emergency department hallways. Average wait times in EDs exceeds 20 hours. Just imagine waiting 20 hours in an emergency department. In primary care, 2.5 million Ontarians have no regular provider. That's projected to rise to 4.4 million by 2026.
The report calls on the government to strengthen community care by addressing challenges like access to primary care, affordable housing, and food insecurity. It says the province has taken positive steps, but warns Bill 60's expansion of for-profit care could undermine transformational goals. Well, the province is tabling new legislation which aims to get housing built faster.
The new rules will look to cut red tape, specifically when it comes to how development charges are imposed. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris reports.
It's a nagging problem the province hasn't been able to solve as the population grows.
To be frank, it takes too long and it costs too much to build houses in Ontario.
The PC government's trying once again to get things moving with a new raft of changes, including to development charges builders pay to help cities with infrastructure that goes along with new homes.
We're going to delay till occupancy. We are getting rid of them with long-term care homes, and we're going to continue to support our municipal partners with needed infrastructure to get water, wastewater, roads in construction.
There will be new help for those kinds of projects in Thursday's budget.
An additional $400 million in the Municipal Housing Infrastructure Program and the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund.
The government's moving to limit municipalities from asking for extra studies or standards beyond the building code. There are changes to accelerate building near transit hubs,
streamline the planning and delivery of these transit-oriented communities, and make it easier for the province to enter into agreements with our municipal partners and building partners.
The bill gets a thumbs up from the Ontario Home Builders Association and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
It provides a clear sense of direction and provides time to work through the details to make sure that we get it right.
In introducing his first bill as housing minister, Flack made no mention of the government's previous goal of 1.5 million new homes by 2031, a target it's well behind on.
We have to make immediate changes, and our focus is in the next 12 to 24 months to get shovels in the ground. But is it forgotten? No way. We're not giving up.
As part of this bill, the government will consult on harmonizing road standards across Ontario. The hope is that speeds up construction and gets you out of the car faster. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
A note for subway riders, there are some early closures to be aware of this week. Starting today and lasting through Friday, trains on Line 1 will stop running between College and Shepherd Young stations at 11 p.m. On Wednesday, service will be extended by an hour on that stretch to accommodate fans attending Game 5 of the Maple Leafs playoff series. Shuttle buses will operate once service ends. There will also be reduced northbound service from Pioneer Village station starting tonight through to Wednesday. All the changes are to accommodate planned track work. And a heads up for streetcar riders. The city and TTC have begun track renewal and water main replacement at King and Church Street. That means the 503 Kingston Road, 504 King, and 508 Lakeshore streetcars are diverting multiple times through the downtown core. Replacement buses will be operating on Broadview and through the Distillery District on King Street. The changes could last until September on some routes.
We have more news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. Great looking day. Lots of sunshine to start the work and school week. Today will more than likely be the nicest day of the week, so enjoy it if you can. As for what's ahead, let's bring in Lindsay Morrison with a look at the current conditions. Lindsay.
Yes, Nathan, I encourage you to enjoy today because a big pattern change is on the way. We've had a beautiful stretch of sunshine. It had to come to an end. Not today. Tomorrow, we're going to see that cloud cover increase. Today, we have the sun. We also have some mild temperatures. Look at that. It is 23 degrees in both Peterborough and Bancroft. We are tapping into a little bit of an east and southeasterly wind around the Golden Horseshoe. So that's keeping, again, lakeside communities a little cooler today. Here's the satellite and radar. We're sandwiched between two disturbances, one to the north and one to the south. That's going to start to slowly drift some cloud cover into our neck of the woods as the day goes on. Temperature-wise, yeah, you'll notice the difference between the islands and Pearson Airport. 20 is where we're at right now. And again, it's going to feel like 25 at the height of this afternoon. But a change is on the way starting tomorrow. We're going to take you through the 7-day forecast coming up. For now, though, Michelle, I'll send it over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, there's been a major development in the trade war between the U.S. and China, with both sides agreeing to roll back tariffs.
The talks in Geneva were very friendly. The relationship is very good. We're not looking to hurt China. China is being hurt very badly. They were closing up factories. They were having a lot of unrest. And they were very happy to be able to do something with us. And the relationship is very, very good. I'll speak to President Xi maybe at the end of the week. We have some other things we're doing.
The U.S. has agreed to lower its tariffs on Chinese goods from 145% to 30%. Meanwhile, China will drop its levies on American products from 125% to 10%. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says neither side is looking to decouple their economies.
What had occurred with these very high tariffs, as Ambassador Greer said, was the equivalent of an embargo, and neither side wants that.
The changes take effect May 14th. However, the trade war has already led to major damage by bringing nearly $600 billion in trade between the two countries to a standstill. China's exports to the U.S. fell sharply last month, while America's GDP contracted for the first time since early 2022.
Turning to the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, Hamas says it has released the last known living U.S. hostage. The Israeli military says Edan Alexander is now with the Red Cross. The dual U.S.-Israeli citizen was serving in the Israeli Defense Force when he was taken hostage during the attack on October 7th, 2023. The head of Hamas's negotiating team says the release is part of steps being taken to achieve a ceasefire with Israel.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called on his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, to meet him personally for peace talks. It's the latest in a series of proposals and counter-proposals from both sides to end the three-year-old conflict. Over the weekend, Ukraine and its allies had called on Russia to accept an unconditional 30-day ceasefire before holding talks. However, Putin rejected the proposal and is calling for direct negotiations in Istanbul on Thursday, something Zelensky has accepted.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is set to unveil his new cabinet tomorrow. The ceremony will begin at 10:30 a.m. Carney's pledged to maintain gender parity in his new cabinet, but has not provided concrete details about its structure or size. And for a preview of tomorrow's cabinet announcement, we're joined live by CTV's Colton Prail in Ottawa. Colton, what have we learned about the look, size, and perhaps structure of this new cabinet?
Yeah, structure is a really interesting question because this is something that has been floated, the idea of potentially a tiered system. It's something we've seen before in Canadian politics, not in recent decades. Harper did it a little bit, but to see it in earnest, you have to go back to Jean Chrétien, Brian Mulroney, and to a certain extent, Paul Martin, where there was the creation of ministers of state, and prior to that, they were called secretary of states. Really, it's just a junior cabinet position, and it speaks to a desire in this PMO for a much more concentrated, streamlined focus at the top on things like the economy, U.S. relations, building infrastructure and internal trade, and perhaps a more secondary focus on those still important portfolios and profiles, but that aren't necessarily needed to meet quite as frequently as that core group of focuses. That's something that's being considered. Not necessarily means it's going to happen, but it is something that's been talked about. When it comes to the size, that is something that we are expecting to change. Obviously, it drops down to 24 in Carney's first cabinet when he took over from Trudeau. There was a cut of 16 MPs from the highs of Trudeau's cabinet at 40. It's a very dramatic shift, smaller than we even saw under Harper. I would expect it to grow a little bit from that number, but only reach about the base of what we saw with Justin Trudeau. 30 is probably that magic number that you're going to see in and around there. There is an emphasis on this being slimmer, on it being more focused, and on it being faster to respond. And part of that will include grouping a number of portfolios together. In Carney's first cabinet, you didn't see a minister of women or a minister of labor or a minister of seniors. All of those were portfolios under Justin Trudeau. Those kind of groupings and changes I expect will continue as well in this cabinet, and you're unlikely to see some of the same sort of politicization of the titles that we saw under Justin Trudeau in this new cabinet from Mark Carney.
So we can probably expect some old faces and some new faces. How will Carney sell these cabinet choices to Canadians?
Yeah, that is the biggest challenge, and certainly when it comes to gender parity, we don't know we were expecting that, but the old and new mix is the biggest ask for Mark Carney. The challenge he faces with some ministers, Dominic LeBlanc, Melanie Joly, David McGuinty, is that they have had very high-profile dealings with the United States, and those relations and dealings are ongoing. So if we see some movement there, that will be slightly unexpected. But in other profiles and portfolios, things like housing, health, which currently sits open, and even finance, there could be some movement there. François-Philippe Champagne is in finance at the moment, but he's relatively new to that position, only gaining it in that last cabinet shuffle. Meanwhile, you have very close associates to Carney, people like Tim Hodgson, who was his former special advisor when he was at the Bank of Canada, the former CEO of Goldman Sachs Canada. You've got people like Carlos Leathong, the former Quebec finance minister. He's on the board of directors at the Bank of Canada. These are very powerful and established economists and people who are connected to these positions who will have their eye on finance. And when it comes to these new faces, that's part of how Mark Carney can show that his administration is going to be different from Justin Trudeau's, that it might be a fourth Liberal term, but that this is a new government under new leadership with new objectives. And so those key portfolios will be the ones to watch to determine just how different Mark Carney's government is actually going to be.
All right, looking forward to finding out what happens tomorrow. CTV's Colton Prale in Ottawa. Thank you. Well, Canada saw another decrease in international travel in April, a 15% decline compared to last year. Stats Canada found international arrivals to Canada by land and air fell to 4.5 million last month. That marks the third straight month of year-over-year declines makes that. Meanwhile, the number of Canadians who made return trips from the U.S. fell by more than 35%.
Two Manitoba men are expressing frustration with the country's healthcare system after they had to travel outside of the country for vital surgeries.
CTV's Alex Carpa has more on why they felt forced to seek care outside of Canada.
Walking up and down stairs was something Guy Arnell had trouble doing for the last few years. He started limping about 6 years ago, and it continued to get worse.
I had 3 spurs on my spine from arthritis, which causes stenosis.
The 76-year-old says he didn't qualify for back surgery in Manitoba due to a lack of pain, which frustrated him. Over the last few years, he was sent to several different specialists, but was always turned away.
First of all, you can make an appointment for a specialist. Well, that's 6 months, or 8 months, or 9 months. And then you come back, you see your doctor, he says, well, he found this, he found that, but you need to go see this another 6, 7 months. So in the 6 years, I had probably kept having problems. Nobody would give me an answer.
Arnell decided enough was enough. He did some research and got his much-needed surgery done out of country in Mexico.
It's changed my life. It's changed my life. It's made me I'm always a happy person. This has made me even happier.
But traveling out of country for much-needed surgery was not cheap for Arnell, dishing out over $35,000 in the process. Many other Canadians are being put in the same situation as Canada's healthcare system faces shortages and long wait times. Shane Komar waited nearly 6 years before deciding to go to Austria for back surgery. Although he is not in pain anymore, he still had to find $30,000 to get it done, which wasn't easy.
I literally couldn't work for the last 2 years. And the amount of money the government would have made off me, of my income tax, would have more than paid for the surgery to have it done in Winnipeg.
Manitoba's health authority says efforts to reduce surgical wait times are ongoing.
For whatever reason, they don't have enough surgeons, or they have excuses after excuses. It's just, our healthcare is good if you don't need anything, but if you need something, it's kind of doesn't really work out for you.
Both men wishing they didn't have to dish out so much money for a surgery that could have been done here. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
During his first news conference with the international media, the Pope called for the release of jailed journalists across the globe.
Let me therefore reiterate today the Church's solidarity with journalists who are imprisoned for seeking and reporting the truth, while also asking for their release.
The
suffering of these imprisoned journalists challenges the conscience of nations and the international community, calling on all of us to safeguard the precious gift of free speech and of the press.
Pope Leo XIV reiterated the Church's solidarity with journalists imprisoned for what he described as seeking the truth.
Well, there is some summertime heat making its way into northern sections of Ontario. We're not going to be quite as warm, but here's a look at today's highs. Still very comfortable in the low to mid-20s in most areas. That's above seasonal, and yeah, it's going to be a little humid too. Here's a look at the almanac. Our seasonal average this time of year is around 19 degrees, so keep that in mind when we take you through the 7-day forecast. UV index for today, an 8 on the scale, which means very high. Slather on the sunscreen before you head out and enjoy the sun. There's not a whole lot of it in the forecast over the next few days here. We're going to take you through it, plus an early look at the long weekend. Those details after the break.
Well, what a weekend of weather. Mother's Day was glorious, and today we've got that sunshine continuing, and it definitely feels even warmer.
Yeah, it's kind of a reminder for me as to why I love summer so much. We're not there yet, but it feels like we're getting close.
We are, that's for sure. But if only this weather could continue through the rest of this week. We are in for a pattern change again. We had that pattern flip when we enjoyed this extended period of sunshine, but all good things must come to an end. Cloud cover is going to increase as early as overnight tonight, and then we've got a chance of showers most days this week. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. The start to each day this week, probably not going to be quite as bright as it was this morning. We had a beautiful blue sky. We've got comfortable temperatures out there, warmer than average, and a little humid out there as well. So be mindful of this if you do plan to venture out for an afternoon or evening stroll. Let me show you what is expected to happen as we make our way through the next couple of days here. We have an area of low pressure that we're watching stateside right now. That's going to begin its track northward, and with that, we can expect an increase in cloud cover and, yes, some wet weather to go along with it. Tomorrow, there's going to be periods of showers. Let me show you the timing of it. First, even as early as this evening, we might see a few fair weather clouds drift their way into the GTA, but this more so happens overnight and then into tomorrow there. We've paused it around 10 a.m. Take the timing with a bit of a grain of salt, but in any case, plan on maybe some showers tomorrow morning, perhaps another round as we head into the afternoon, and really keep the umbrella handy into the evening as well. You'll see how scattered the shower activity looks to be. And then Wednesday, plan on it being unsettled once again. At this point, it's looking like anywhere from 5 to 10 millimeters of rain through the day on Wednesday. But there's also potential for wet weather into Thursday and Friday. We'll talk about that more coming up. Let's also talk about the temperature story. As you can see, 20-degree temperatures already. I'm not even going to call it the highs because we still have a few hours of daytime heating to go. But 21 degrees this hour in Muskoka, as well as Wyerton, also Sault Ste. Marie. Northern portions of Ontario really going to be feeling the heat over the next couple of days here. We, too, aren't necessarily in for a cool down this week, but I do want to mention that again. Our forecast daytime high here in Toronto at Pearson is 23 degrees. We will still enjoy that into this evening, but it's worth mentioning that it is going to feel cooler by the lake thanks to a persistent east wind. Tonight's low around 11 degrees, and then tomorrow still in the 20s in many areas. Around the Golden Horseshoe, we are going to dip a little bit cooler. Look at Oakville at 14. And yes, of course, we do have the unsettled weather to go along with that. So let's take you through the 7-day forecast. Again, as mentioned, not nearly as bright as today. A fair amount of cloud cover, chance of showers most days, remaining most of the time in the low 20s for highs. And then maybe a little bit of a cool down as we enter the long weekend. We're going to be keeping an eye on that one, of course. So stay with us. We'll have a recap of your weather a little later in the show. But for now, Nathan, I'll send it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. The Toronto Scepters were in Minnesota last night for Game 3 of their first-round playoff series.
Series so far. In quick, Himlerova to Liz Sheppers. She scores!
The Minnesota Frost scored 3 goals in the first 8 minutes. However, the Scepters battled back but were unable to complete the comeback. They ended up losing the game 7-5. They'll look to avoid elimination when they return to the ice in Minnesota on Wednesday.
The NBA Draft Lottery is being held in Chicago tonight. The Raptors finished with the 7th worst record in the NBA this season, giving them a 7.5% chance of securing the first overall pick. The last time the Raptors were in this position was 2021, when they moved up to 4th overall and selected Scotty Barnes. Duke freshman Cooper Flagg is expected to be selected first overall. The lottery gets underway at 7 p.m.
Still to come, is artificial intelligence really better at changing people's minds than humans? We'll have more on a controversial experiment when we come back.
A study performed by researchers at the University of Zurich has led to widespread outrage and a statement from the university that it will change its ethics review process.
For more, we're joined by CTV science and tech specialist Dan Riskin. Dan, it seems the outrage stems from people on Reddit thinking that they were talking to human beings, but instead they were talking to AI.
Yeah, so this is an experiment these researchers wanted to do, and they didn't go through the proper channels of getting permission. And the trust that people have in scientists is fragile. And it's a big deal when people break that trust. And so there's a lot of eyeballs on this right now. And what they basically wanted to do was an experiment where they wanted to know if AI could make people change their minds. There's a subreddit called Change My View, where you go on and you try to convince people that they should see the world differently. And so they created these chat bots that went on there pretending to be humans and changed real people's views on real topics in the real world, and then sort of measured their success at doing that. And it did things that were very deceitful, like one of the chatbots, which again is AI, not a real person, saying, I'm a black man and I think that the Black Lives Movement matter is misguided. And then, making arguments and changing people's minds actively. The one interesting piece is that it was effective. It changed people's minds. And so on top of all this review and talk of the ethics, I think the other big piece that comes out of this is the realization that AI is very powerful, and in the wrong hands or being used by somebody with a misguided idea of what the right thing to do is, could be very, very dangerous.
No, it's frightening.
Yeah.
Let's move on to a study about karma. A lot of people talk about, oh, that's good karma, bad karma, but this study really talks about people's beliefs in karma. Tell us more.
Yeah, this is a surprise. Karma is supposed to be sort of, unweighted, right? It's supposed to be just fair. If you're nice to the world will be nice to you. If you're mean to the world will be mean to you. But when you ask people, and this is a study that was done in the US, it was done in India, and it was done in Singapore, and it was the same everywhere. If you say to somebody, name a time that you've had karma occur in your life, they'll name something good that happened to them. And then if you say, name a time that you've seen karma happen to somebody else, they'll usually name something bad that happened to that other person. And there's this real disconnect between the fairness that's supposed to exist. When it's you, karma's great. And when it's the other person, karma's going to get you.
Yeah, it's hard to really believe life's always fair.
Yeah, yeah, it's covering the news. I'm sure you see plenty of examples where it sure isn't.
So this next one is about magicians and how they manipulate audiences. And there's a study looking at the way they perceive the audience isn't always accurate.
Yeah, so it's interesting because you think of a magician as the master of sort of controlling their audience's perception and knowing what they're thinking and being able to trick them into thinking one thing when something else is happening. But it turns out that when they looked at some views magicians had on how the audience perceives things, and then they measured the audience's performance or the audience's perceptions, they saw a big difference. And the big one that was really different is participation. Magicians have a belief that if they get the person to, here, take a card out of my hand and try to guess a number, and okay, lie down in this box, I'm going to cut you in half, whatever it is, it feels like they'll be more engaged, but it didn't turn out to be that way. It turned out that when people were participating, they didn't find the magic any more convincing than when they were just watching it, and they just found it more stressful.
I wonder what you do with this now.
Yeah, I think if you're a magician, it's probably going to change the way that the way you do things, but I also think that having that one person, in front of an audience and doing something with them, maybe it's not really about them. Maybe it's more about the audience seeing it happen to a person who isn't a magician. And so they didn't measure that, and I think that's another piece of it.
Well, I never thought I would see magic and science come together.
It's fascinating. There's a lab in the UK that does some really good stuff. It's really interesting.
You've proven to us, the diversity of science. It's amazing. Karma, magicians, we've done it all today. CTV science and tech specialist Dan Riskin, thank you.
Thank you. Well, Ontario's given the green light to the construction of a small nuclear reactor, the first of its kind in a Western nation.
While it promises cheap and reliable green energy, critics claim there are better alternatives. CTV's John Venevalley-Rao reports.
Next to Ontario's Darlington nuclear plant, you'll see a massive construction site where proponents say history is being made. The area slated to be home to the first of 4 mini nuclear reactors, which could help pave the way for widespread adoption around the globe.
We are taking our true place as a global clean energy superpower.
The province giving Ontario Power Generation the green light to spend more than $20 billion on the SMRs short for small modular reactors. The science behind them is similar to a bigger nuclear plant, but the hope is they can be factory constructed, making them easier and cheaper to build. And they could power remote communities or industrial sites.
I have to say that among the young nuclear workers, there is tremendous excitement about being world leaders in the construction of the next generation of the nuclear SMRs.
The first plant will provide up to 300 megawatts of electricity, enough to power 300,000 homes, about a third that of a traditional nuclear facility. Expected to start feeding the grid in 2030, the project is being closely followed outside the province.
The Saskatchewan government is considering the same reactor model. They're basically hinging their decision on whether to build their first nuclear reactor based on whether or not things go well in Ontario.
Only a handful of SMRs have ever been built, and they're in China and Russia. Several Western countries are considering them. Still, some critics insist other forms of green energy are better and don't like that the reactor is American designed.
It simply doesn't make sense to build new American nuclear reactors when Canadian wind and water power and solar power can keep our lights on at a much, much lower cost.
But Ontario believes small reactors are a big part of the future and plans to export its expertise as the global hunger for energy grows. John Valley-Rouse, CTV News, Toronto.
It was another weekend at the top of the box office for Marvel's latest release.
This has makings of team that can rise to glory.
The Thunderbolts held on to the crown with just over $33 million U.S. across North America. The movie tells the story of a team of anti-heroes, led by a cast featuring Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, and David Harbour. Action horror flick Sinners was able to hold on to second place with $21.1 million in ticket sales, while video game adaptation, a Minecraft movie, claimed third with around $8 million.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, 5 Starbucks locations in Ontario have ratified their first collective agreements. We'll have more on the unionization push at the coffee chain when we return.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Maple Leafs fans are continuing to grapple with last night's loss to the Florida Panthers, which tied their second playoff series at 2 games apiece. For more now on how fans are coping, we're joined by Sam East, host of 99.9 Virgin Radio, for our regular Monday segment, Chronically Online. Sam, great to have you with us. A little frustrating. You know, we were up 2 games, and now the series is tied, but Leafs fans have seen a lot worse over the years.
You know what? It is an emotional roller coaster being a Leafs fan, isn't it? But what a lot of people are saying is this proves the test of our loyalty. We are there in good times and in bad times. And I think, judging by the comments that we're seeing online right now, maybe we got a tad cocky with it. The stats were looking like they were in our favor. We were up 2 games. And a shutout yesterday. There was a piece that went up on NHL.com reviewing essentially what happened in this game, and they did not mince words in this piece, quoted as saying that they were simply out-hustled, out-muscled, outshot, out-skated, outplayed, outclassed, simply out everything. Ouch! Oh, goodness, that hurts to hear. And you're seeing this a lot in comment sections across the board on social media, where fans are really trying to make sense of this, but not losing hope, not losing steam for Game 5, of course, this Wednesday, 7 p.m. with home ice advantage. So hopefully that will work out in our favor, because I don't know if our hearts can take this any longer. It's a lot to handle, Michelle.
I know, but I don't know. I have found, especially we were up 2 games, it seemed as though fans were afraid to be happy and to be cocky and to celebrate because, like, oh, this has never happened. It's like we should be allowed, and I don't know. It wasn't a complete blowout. Okay, this is what was happening in the square. Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, there is a distinct difference between games 1 and 2 to games 3 and 4. Look, the energy is high. It starts really good. We're hopeful. And then the defeat, the look in their eyes, literally bringing Leafs fans to their knees. I mean, it is incredible. I feel like there should be a study done on how this team has impacted people's emotional well-being.
Oh, my goodness. But you know what? One game can change it all. They come back here, you know, on Wednesday, and we win it, and then hopes are high once again, and it's all good. Sam, let's move on. Beyonce, she's embarked on her Cowboy Carter tour, but it's her daughter that's been the one stealing the show.
Yeah, if you are on TikTok at all or Instagram, you'll see it's less about the Beyonce clips, which is a stark difference from her tours of the past. Suddenly, everybody is focused on Blue Ivy, her 13-year-old daughter. Now, if you recall, she did have some appearances in her previous tour, the Renaissance tour, 2 years ago, but Blue Ivy is back with a vengeance. They're now calling her the manager because of how laser focused she has been dancing alongside her mama. I mean, not to mention, she's 13 years old. Mom has been in the game for decades upon decades now. But we do have a clip of her kind of playing up to that manager stereotype that's been given to her by fans.
She worked so hard on her book. She has the #1 book.
So that is Beyonce and the whole family there. Her mom's on stage, Blue Ivy's on stage, her younger daughter, Rumi, who's just excited to be there. But Blue Ivy is a consummate professional. She's basically running the show at this point, and it looks like the sky's the limit for Blue Ivy. People are saying maybe she's the next Beyonce, maybe she's following in her footsteps, and a lot of people are giving her that respect for putting in the work.
Oh my goodness, I haven't seen her in a while. She looks so much like her mom. I mean, she's got the beauty, but then she's also got that incredible talent. I believe you. I think the sky is the limit.
Yeah, she's got unmatched stage presence. I mean, when Beyonce's your mom, I think the coaching is probably going very well in the off seasons when they're not on tour.
Right, and she also got a talented dad as well. Okay, Sam, really appreciate it. Always fun to chat with you. This is how we kickstart our week. Appreciate it. And I'll let everyone at home know you can hear Sam on 99.9 Virgin Radio every weekday between 2 and 5 p.m. Take care.
Thank you, Michelle.
Well, 5 Starbucks locations in Ontario have ratified their first collective agreements. The United Steelworkers Union says employees at stores in Toronto, Ajax, and the Kitchener-Waterloo region have ratified agreements marking a step forward in the push for unionization at the coffee chain. Starbucks faced criticism after closing its only unionized location in Vancouver in 2023. And coming up, marking Asian Heritage Month, a group in Montreal is celebrating their culture through dance. We'll have the details when we come back. May is Asian Heritage Month in Canada, with local groups showcasing different elements of Asian culture.
In Montreal, one group is expressing themselves through Bollywood dance. CTV's Anastasia Dextrain has the details.
For Ramiz Karim, it started as a passion, and it's become his life's work.
I feel that dance is a really important tool to start conversations.
Karim first hit the dance floor when he was 5. A flair for creative style and storytelling led the Montrealer to performances at community events, then professional companies. In 2019, he created Veils of Bollywood, a dance company of his own.
We're really trying to push the boundaries of different art forms coming together, bridging different cultures together, having this type of intercultural exchange, which I find is really, really important, especially at a time like now.
Amid Asian Heritage Month, Karim says India is an essential part of Asia that is sometimes forgotten. He welcomes each rehearsal as a moment to celebrate his heritage with the community. One treasured moment is the salutation used at the start and end of each practice. It's called the Namaskaram.
At one point, we touched the ground because Indian dance is very much connected to the earth and to nature. So because we dance barefoot, we're striking the ground with our feet, and we are conscious of this, and we're asking the planet, actually, if we can dance on her and stomp on her.
33-year-old Simran Kaur has been dancing with Veils of Bollywood since day one. For her, this idea of asking permission has another significance.
It's really important because a lot of the women in my culture, in my background, didn't have the permission and the privilege to be able to dance this freely, this liberated. And so for me, it's not just a dance for me, but as a way to honor all of those women and let them come and dance through me as a celebration, as a moment of joy.
And there's much joy to be had as the Troupe of 12 prepares for a residency at Maison de la Culture in July. They hope their show titled Dreams of Bollywood will help turn up the music on the cultural conversation. Anastasia Dextrain, CTV News.
All right. The dance brings joy. This weather also bringing some joy.
Only one day of it this week, though.
That's
the nice
thing.
stuff.
Yeah, we enjoyed several days over the weekend and the end of last week, but it's true. Enjoy today because a big change is coming as we make our way into tomorrow and the days after that. First, let's talk about overnight tonight. A few clouds are going to start to increase, but for the most part, it is going to be mostly clear tonight. 11 is our forecast low, which is on the warm side of seasonal. Now, tomorrow is actually a seasonal day, even though it's going to be cooler than what we have today. 19 is the forecast high. That's at Pearson. It is going to feel colder than that the closer you are to the shoreline of Lake Ontario, as once again, we're going to have a bit of an east wind. You can expect it to be cloudier. You should also plan on there being some showers on and off through the day, and there's a good chance of that happening every day for the rest of this week. And an early look at the long weekend shows a similar pattern with some cooler air returning by Sunday. Nathan and Michelle.
Good to know. Thank you, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.